We're going to talk together about all that we have planned for Advent and Christmas this year. This year that has changed in the last couple of weeks, hasn't it? Maybe what we thought Christmas might look like might be slightly different again as we come towards December. But we're going to share what we have planned in terms of resources, ideas, what's planned on our different websites and different digital platforms to try and support you and equip you with all that you're doing locally this year. We know that you are best placed to work out what's going to be best for your community, but we have got some national resources to offer that you might find useful to download, to use, and see what might work locally. This presentation is going to be available at the end of the session on this link here, churchofengland.org/Christmas. And that is the best place for you to go to remind yourself on what we've spoken about today and to find new resources as we go towards Advent and Christmas, as we add the final pieces of the campaign. So yeah, do make a note of that web address, and that is where you'll be able to find this presentation and other useful resources and links after our time together today. So do look back then. Just a reminder about questions. As ever on these webinars, we'd love to have your questions. We're going to have a proper period of Q&A at the end. So do add your questions into that Q&A box. There should be a button at the bottom or the top of your screen, depending on what you're using, that you can just click on to put your question in, and do feel free to ask those questions throughout the session so that you don't forget those questions, but we'll be taking most of those at the end. So do make sure you ask anything that you're wondering, and we will try our best to answer those at the end. So I'm joined by my colleagues who you can see here, I hope, and they are going to share with you all that we've got coming up. But what I thought might be best is if we start by looking back at last year first, to just refresh our memories on what we do throughout Advent and Christmas. It feels like a way ago, doesn't it? And like I said, it might feel strange us talking about this today. We've all had a lot to take in over the last couple of weeks, and if you're anything like us, we had fixed our attention towards Advent and Christmas a few weeks ago, and we're working hard to get ready for that. And then of course our attention had to pivot when we heard the really sad news about the Queen, and that's what we've been focusing on for the last little while. So it might feel strange, it definitely feels strange to us to be talking now about Advent and Christmas and to be looking ahead and trying to think about what's to come, but we wanted to still use this time today so that we can get ready together for things that for all that will be coming ahead. So I just wanted to say that if you're feeling a little bit strange about doing this today, then so are we, and we've lost time and we've lost our focus, but we're back thinking about how we can sensitively welcome people into our churches this year. So let's look back then at last year, which again was another difficult year. We thought we were coming out of the pandemic, didn't we? And more things happened, and different restrictions and regulations were put in place. So at the heart of Christmas really was designed to meet people where they were after a number of difficult Advents and Christmases, and to try and remind people what really is at the heart of Christmas, and to welcome people however we were able to gather, whether that was just online, whether that was in services in our buildings, but to gather to reflect on what really is at the heart of Christmas. So as we move on then to look at some of the headlines of last year to refresh all of our memories, we were really delighted about how our local churches got behind this campaign. As with all of our national campaigns, we as a national team look to provide resources nationally that that might work for you locally. As I said, you are best placed to know what's going to work in your communities, but we were delighted by the number of resources that were downloaded, the number of services that you added to a church near you. We're going to talk more about a church near you later, but my joke is always that all roads lead to a church near you, because a church near you, that church finder tool that we have, is the best place that we can signpost nationally to connect people in locally to your local church and other local churches. So we're going to hear more about what's planned for a church near you later, but just thrilled by the number of services and the number of members of the public who use that platform then to find their local church. Like I said, we create these resources nationally for you to use, but it is also that you can connect with your local community, and so can we nationally, connecting with individuals to meet them where they are at these key times of the year, including Christmas. So yes, we had the national videos watched, and this is how the campaign looked then at a glance. So this is the shape of last year's campaign. We had those reflections, daily reflections from a range of contributors that everything flowed from. So from there, we had our social media posts, we had audio, we had the printed booklets. We're going to hear more about what's on offer this year. We also had those national online services and events. So those national online services were created at the start of the pandemic to really meet a need that lots of our buildings were shut and that not all of our churches were able to stream services or pre-record services, and those services have continued now, those national online services, which are available both on our social media channels, on our website, and on the Daily Hope line as well, the free phone line that's on offer. And the reason that's carried on is because we have got this group of people who are still engaging with those national online services that come from a different Church of England church each week. So yeah, we offered those again last Christmas, and those will be on offer again this Christmas for those people who are perhaps still not able to visit one of our local churches. We had our Christmas advert, which really sought to drive people through to a church near you, again, to connect in with our local church. We had content for children and young people across a range of platforms, content really aimed at that younger generation to meet them where they were and encourage them to find out more about what really is at the heart of Christmas. We have prayers and other content on social media. We had our first Christmas single last year that you might have heard, and we had our virtual reality carol series. Now, you might be thinking, why on earth did the Church of England invest in virtual reality? And we really saw this as a next step. Perhaps people through the pandemic had engaged with one of our online services, but weren't quite ready to come through the doors, perhaps, at one of our churches. We thought that this virtual reality, where it seems as though you are in that building, you look around, it's almost as if you are there, would be a good next step to encourage people, to show people what it's like in one of our buildings, that perhaps this year they might feel confident and able to do so. So we'll look ahead then at some of the resources. Again, just thrilled at how people were using that. So the youth reflections that I mentioned, this was the first time we'd offered youth reflections in this way, and we're going to hear more about what we're doing. But we worked with a YouTube channel called The Way, who we are working with fully now, to make content. So it's by young people for young people, but it still drives them through those channels that we use, such as the church near you, so that these teenagers can connect with one of our churches. So we created this content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, for young people, by young people, looking at a range of topics that is relevant to them. And you can see the numbers here, which we're so delighted with, and we're building on this year. So if you do have young people in your community, your congregation, your family, do encourage them to follow The Way, because that's content that we're commissioning right for them. And that's something we're going to do again this year after the success of last year. We also had our family reflections, so thinking more widely about faith at home. How can families take time together through Advent and Christmas, and just short activities, reflections to think about throughout that busy time. And we really were pleased with how these were engaged with on our website and on Instagram. So we're really going to build on this, make sure that that time for families to give parents and grandparents and other people who look after children just time to pause during that busy period and to think about what really is at the heart of Christmas. You'll see this lovely quote that we had from someone who stopped on the morning on the school run to do these reflections with their child, and yeah, it's stories like that is what encourages us to keep going. So that was lovely to have that piece of feedback. A church near you, then, like I said, all roads lead to a church near you with us. We are so passionate about this platform because it is really a key tool for both evangelism and discipleship. We know that it's the best place we can send the public to connect in with one of your local churches. And you can see this, see on the screen here that 80% of people who visit a church near you are there for the very first time. So it's not just our regular churchgoers looking at a church near you to find out what time this event is on today. It really is a chance for us to connect with new people and invite them in. It's such a key tool. So a church near you is the destination that we drive so much traffic to at Christmas. And again, you can see the results. So we had 22,000 Advent and Christmas services added by editors like you. Hopefully lots of you are editors on a church near you, but added there so that people in your local community can find a church, a service or an event to connect with last year, and we hope that will happen again this year. We've made it even easier to become an editor and even easier to add your services and events to a church near you. We know that a lot of you have amazing websites of your own, and that is great, but the best place for us to point people to nationally is that site, which then you can link to your own church website. So really encourage you to make sure you spend the time adding those services and events last year. Like I said, 80% of people looking are there for the first time, and we'd love them to find out more about your services and events this Christmas as they did last Christmas. The Resource Hub is another reason to becoming a church near you editor. So last year we carried on as we did throughout the pandemic, adding hymns and carols and other music for you to just download and use, perhaps in your online worship. But we hear a lot of churches were using those tracks in their in-person, in the building services as well, and that's great. And more of that's coming this year. We had social media templates so that you could use all of this national branding at the heart of Christmas branding, but with your local information. So on the Church Near You Resource Hub, you can customize that with social media generator for videos and with graphics as well. And we had other campaign resources like the logos and different images to use, and that's all available for free on a church near you in the Resource Hub last year, and we'll be looking ahead at what's to come this year as well. So we took some time to reflect at the end of last year. Like I said, we were really hoping that that Christmas would be a chance for us to welcome people back with open arms. And we weren't able to do so as fully as we'd have liked to because we did have Omicron hit as we approached Christmas last year, with services cancelled or moved online. So it was still a challenge last Christmas, but we did feel that at the heart of Christmas allowed our local churches to meet people where they were after a challenging year and give people the Christmas message, that joyful message that we have. Some of our regular churchgoers wanted a bit more content throughout Advent, so we're looking at what we can do this year. More on that to come. We were thinking with our giving team about what can we do to help in a really gentle way, but to talk about giving and generosity. So that's something that we're building into this year, how we can really sensitively do that and equip you with easy ways to have those conversations in your services and events. We also need to think this year about that balance between the printed resources, digital resources. We know that over the last couple of Christmases, you might have bought booklets, you might have printed banners, you might have got a load of other resources that you just weren't able to give away because you didn't meet in your buildings in the way that you might have hoped. So we've been considering that as we've been putting together this Christmas. And we've also been thinking about online worship. Like I told you, we have that group that still watch our national online worship, and I'm sure many of you who are still offering online worship have got the same the same situation in your churches, that some are still just watching that online and perhaps aren't coming through the doors for a number of reasons. And what do we do? How do we honor that group who are still with us online? How can we allow them to take that next step, perhaps either by coming to a service in person or by helping them with some digital discipleship resources? Those are all of the things that we were really considering as we look ahead to this Advent and Christmas and beyond, of course. And that has led us to this year's campaign, which I'm going to hand over to my colleague Thomas to chat to us a little bit more about.
Thanks very much indeed, Amaris. So yes, just to say that I'm Thomas Allen Chapman. I'm head of publishing, so I'm involved on printed resources, you might expect, also working very closely with Amaris and the digital team on apps and audio, and really making sure that all of our resources for the campaign and everything else that we do are as joined up as possible and work for as many people out there, and work for as many churches as we can with the best possible content. So it's great to be part of this campaign. We all hope that Christmas is going to be different this year from the last 2 years. That sense of having to come to a juddering halt, or sense that things can't be as we want them to be. So we really, one of the key things that came out of our discussions with colleagues across networks and across dioceses has been, we really want people back in our churches. We really want to say you are welcome. We really want people to enjoy the basics of Christmas, the basic joys of coming together to sing carols, to be really part of to crowd into that Christingle service, try not to set your hair on fire, that sort of thing. Really want that to be part of everyone's lives again. So really trying to do that. Really want that message want that to be the message to people, to really come to us, to really be part of things. But also we really wanted to recognise that things are going to be different for some people. We do recognise that some traditions will have changed, some patterns will have been broken. People who have been used to doing one thing may have been out of a habit, and for children who have been born in the last people and parents who've had children born in the last couple of years, that tradition of going along to the crib service may not have been formed. So all of those things. So we want to go back. We want to go back, but also we have to recognise that we have to go forward. So we really want that to be something that we a theme that allows us people to reconnect with Christmas as it has been, but also take things forward. Recognizing that as an added twist this December, we've got a World Cup happening, something that we've never had before, that will change the kind of public and sort of media discourse and attention at various points, and we'll have to sort of think about how we factor that in. So with all those things in mind, we have come to the theme that we are working with for this year, which is Follow the Star, the Great Invitation. Now, for those of you who have been involved in your churches for a while, you recognise Follow the Star is a theme that we've used before. In fact, we used it in 2018, 2019, and we were all set to use it in 2020 because really that sense of, and coming back to what Amaris was saying about being able to sort of reuse things, not having to throw everything away, start again. Follow the Star was a message that the feedback was that the local churches really enjoyed it. Everyone could see the benefit of having something that a logo that was very strong, and a message that resonated both with people who knew the story and really cared about it, about the Christmas story, but even those who aren't really people who are not necessarily that familiar with church and with stories, understood. They know about the wise men following the star, and they know, they can understand that connects with Christmas. So it's, it had a lot of resonance, it had a lot of success, and the simplicity of saying, put a star in your church, put a banner with a star outside your church, encourage people to come, and that recognition was really strong. So we wanted to bring it back, so that if you have invested in star to put in your church spire, or a banner or a big poster, you can use it again. But also we've given it the twist of adding in the idea of the Great Invitation, because we don't want to take for granted the idea that everyone will come back to church for Christmas. We really want to say, make people know that they are invited, they are welcome to be part of this celebration, and encourage, also at the same time, really encourage us to think about the Great Invitation of faith. What are we invited to? What are the next steps in faith that Christmas might lead to, both for us, who people who are part of a congregation, people who are disciples already, but also who are the people who might come through the door for the first time, or for the first time in a very long time. How can we take them on that next step of that faith of discipleship? So those are so we are saying Back to the Future. We are Follow the Star is back, and it's something that we really hoped to do. We hope to take forward. It's back, but with that idea of the Great Invitation as a real focus this year, so that we can really be intentional. It's a word that we love in church, isn't it? About inviting people, making sure that they know that this is a place for them, and that there is a real welcome waiting for them in our churches. So if we can go on to the next thing, so the phrase "the Great Invitation" this won't call to mind for, if we say to people the Great Commission from the Gospels. I think not everyone, a lot of people will understand that relates to what Jesus says in terms of going out and making disciples of all nations. The Great Invitation, which obviously comes earlier in the Gospel, in Matthew's Gospel, that idea of coming, Jesus inviting everyone to come to him, for not so you can do more, not so you can have more stuff to do and feel bad about yourself, to rest and to have your burdens lightened. I think probably that's something that that we all need to hear. But I say that's just one of the invitations in Scripture that we will be focusing on in our 12 days of reflection, which I'll come and talk to you in a moment. The reflections booklet. Somebody who's already asked a question. Don't want to get into too many questions already, but why are we doing resources? How do digital resources help get people? How do they relate to people coming to church, people being together physically, and everything else? I think the idea of when what we've tried to do with campaigns is to provide resources that both encourage people to allow churches to encourage people to come and join in with things, but also give that next step. Because I think coming along to church for Christmas is, I think a lot of people will feel that that's what they can do, but where do you go next? And it may not be the obvious thing to them to necessarily come back on the first Sunday in January. I mean, great if they do, wonderful. I'm sure many, some will, but also to that sense of having something where you can point people to really take that next step in terms of a personal, what does faith mean to me? What does Christmas really have to say for the rest of my life? So resources that can do that. I'm a firm believer in the power of physical resources that you can give to people, that you can put in people's hands. In a way, it's hard to give things digitally, as it were, but you can share them. So the resources, we will continue to produce a new reflections booklet for this year, which will have 12 reflections in it, and that content will also be taken forward in the free app, which people can be which can be again, people can be pointed to. Churches can encourage people to use it to take that next step. The resources, the reflections will be written by a variety of contributors, including both archbishops, but also and people within the church, but also sports people. Obviously, World Cup being a feature, it's an interesting link to the world of sport. Sports people, TV presenters, and a range of different voices from representing a very diverse group of people, sharing their thoughts on the idea of invitation. And each day will be the form will be an invitation to, well, rest find rest is one of them that focuses on that Matthew passage, but other things, invitation to share good news, thinking about the shepherds, invitation to open the door on New Year's Eve, focusing on the passage from Revelation when Jesus stands at the door and knocks. So there's lots of different ways into thinking, moving from that sense of joy, welcome, to everyone being welcome at the stable, everyone welcome at the invited to go to Bethlehem. Where might we be where might faith be leading us next? So those invitations, that theme of invitation runs through the booklets, which will be available by aiming for the middle of next month. But as Ambrose mentioned, a lot of our plans have been somewhat thrown into the air. But the good thing about this slide, the timing, there are lots of less than great things about it. The good thing is actually there will be, I think, a need to reflect somewhere that for us as a nation, as a Church of England, things have changed. Will have changed this year. The Christmas, we won't be watching the Queen after Christmas lunch this year. It'll be the King. It's a slightly different world. So the booklets will be available. There will also, again, printed resources, smaller, simpler, cheaper resources that you can give out that also contain the same branding and point people towards the digital resources. So prayer cards for adults, but also a sort of prayer activity card for families that we did, similar to one we did last year, that will give a prayer and a template for something that children can decorate, either bring back to church, put on, add on a Christmas tree, or do as part of a Sunday school or a school activity, or just do at home and add there. So that and there will also be templates and resources for invitations for in the form of a Christmas card, invitations, flyers, posters, and resources that really do help just raise that awareness and encourage people to come along and feel that there is there are important things that they are welcome to happening at their local church. I've mentioned that the app, the resources being available, the reflection resources being available through the app, on email and smart speaker, and obviously that's all completely free for people to sign up to. Rachel will talk later about Church Near You, and again, as Ambrose mentioned earlier on, the resource hub will contain a whole wealth of resources that are produced nationally but are available for churches to download, use, adapt locally in whatever way they need to. And there will be other ways to share that content through various social media, including WhatsApp is something that we're really looking to use more this year. And there will be the idea of the Great Invitation. We'll try and sort of help people to make it easy for people to really kind of work with that idea by producing some sort of a sort of toolkit of resources for what we've kind of talked in with amongst ourselves as a kind of service in a box idea. So idea that there is an Advent or Christmas service that really focuses on the idea of reflection, with various suggestions of how you can do that, how you can include different ages, and also ideas for Advent, sort of simple liturgy at the start of Advent for people who are part of that part of your congregation, to really kind of encourage, commission them to really spread the word and to spread that great invitation, to invite family and friends, people who they might not have seen in the last couple of years at Christmas, to really make that effort to make sure that people are invited and feel included. And also resources to help, which Natalie will talk about later, which focus on help us to negotiate this idea of a World Cup December, and there are some interesting ideas about how to do that. So I think that's all for that slide. So I think I'm handing over this. Yeah, that's just an example of what the booklet will look like. But there'll be more of that. A free copy of the booklet and other resources will be sent to all clergy in middle of October, as we tended to do, so they can see a sample, they can know what's coming, and they can choose to order if that's right for them, or point people to the digital versions. I'll hand over to Rachel now to talk about Church Near You.
Thank you, Thomas. So yeah, I'm a member of the digital team. One of the things that I have responsibility for is a churchnearyou.com. So I wanted to show you some of what's available already and some previews of what is coming. So Amaris mentioned how many churches found the downloads available on Church Near You useful last year. So already on a churchnearyou.com, you can get hold of templates that you can customize with information about your own Christmas services that use this nice follow the star, the Great Invitation branding. We also already have their details about what Christmas music we're going to provide so that you can prepare if you're going to be using that. And we have all the logos and branding available. But what's going to be coming soon, and I've got just a prototype here, this isn't exactly what it's going to be, is if you have no particular graphic design skills, we're actually going to have, as we have in previous years, but updated, it's a generator. So literally all you have to do is type the text and it produces out ready to go that image file you need to print or to put on social media. So we hope this is a really easy way that whatever kind of level of skills you have in your people who volunteer and are part of your church, it'll be possible to create something really quick and easy that looks great, that's really welcoming, saying this is when our services, come and join us. Those of you who use social media for churches know that posts that have something visual on them rather than just the text get so much more engagement. So this is a really quick way that you can get that. So this bit isn't here yet, but it's coming very soon. And I've seen already a few questions in the chat about getting access to these resources. So I just wanted to address that. So to get access to the resource hub, you need to be an editor of a church near you. Each church can have up to 5 editors. And one thing we've done just in the last few weeks is made it even easier and simpler to become an approved editor of a church near you. So I'll put in the chat some more information about that, a link. And if you are joining us today, not from a church, but from a diocese, you can also get, we've got a way that we can get you a login as well, so that you can see everything that churches are getting, or if you want to use it yourself, you can do that. So again, when I finish speaking, I'll put the link for that in there. Okay, so that's in the resource hub. And there'll be a few other things as well, including a poster you can put up with a QR code that links people to the app. If you'd like to, perhaps if you're not buying the printed ones, or you are, but you want it as another option, so you can display that and people can access those reflections in your church. But all there in the resource hub. And then we will be updating our homepage on a churchnearyou.com and creating a special page /Christmas. So this is our Christmas event finder. Everything will be posting on social media. We'll be saying, find a church near you to worship at this Advent and Christmas. You're invited, you're welcome. So make sure that you have added your Advent and Christmas things to a churchnearyou.com. Now, you may be a church that uses a church near you all year round as your main church website, in which case you're probably already onto this. But if you're somebody who uses it alongside another church website, perhaps you don't go onto a church near you quite so often, now is the moment to make sure that you do go in and add those Advent and Christmas events, just because we're going to be sending so much traffic through to a church near you at Advent and Christmas time, and you want to make sure that people find you. And again, these are our drafts that we're building at the moment, ready to go live at the beginning of Advent. So it might not look exactly like what I'm showing you, but I wanted to give you a preview. We're really pleased this year that we're going to have some more filtering options for people on our Christmas landing page. Might look something like this. You can see there's a few checkboxes that people can use. And we're also developing, like we did last year, a block for Christmas that will appear on each church's homepage on a church near you. That just really emphasizes that message of invitation. This is the great invitation. You are welcome, whether you're by yourself, whether you're with others, whether you're for the first time or you've been before, just really getting that language in there to emphasize that we want to invite people who haven't been to church before, and that they will be really welcome. So this isn't the final design, but something like this, a block underneath your main welcome text, there'll be a standard block that people can click through on, and any event that you've tagged with any Advent or Christmas event, when they press the Christmas event button, they will see all of those. So a nice Christmassy makeover for your pages. We've also put some, because of the we really want to make it easy to invite and share invitations. We're building some new functionality around that. So this is just one of our prototypes, but just showing now for all of our event entries on a church near you from the beginning of Advent, we're going to have an improved add to calendar function. So that will be optimized to work with a wide range of calendar types. And also, when someone has added a calendar, they'll automatically be prompted to share it with others. And if they do that, including, you can see there's a WhatsApp option there, it will share the exact link to that event, but with a really nice invitational graphic, again, saying you're invited. So enabling those personal invitations to take place. So I think that's everything I wanted to say about a church near you. But one of the other things I'm working on is developing the resources for young people this year. So I wanted to talk to you about that. As Amaris said, if you haven't already, please tell the young people in your church or your youth leaders about the way. So we're working really closely with them. They are young people who create video content for young people. So we think it's really compelling that this stuff aimed at young people is actually being made by peers. And they're particularly gaining a lot of traction on TikTok. You can see that at the moment they've got 48,000 followers on TikTok. So we are focusing on the platforms that are used by young people. So you won't find them if you look them up on Facebook and Twitter. You'll find them on Instagram, you'll find them on YouTube, and you'll find them on TikTok. They are going to be creating some content that includes individual testimonies about coming to church at Christmas. They'll be creating some fun content off the back of our main Christmas advert that we'll be producing. So they will be featuring young people, showing them being at church at Christmas, and also getting some really hopefully thought-provoking content together. We've noticed that although that actually there's an appetite from young people to almost get kind of wisdom from their elders, and that people are interested in that. So they've got a format that the Way often do, talking to young people about key questions, but we're going to throw in a Christmas special where young people are asking questions to older people about Christmas, about what matters at Christmas, about going to church and general life wisdom. So we think that will again be highly shareable. So these are things that will hopefully encourage young people themselves in your churches to be confident inviting others to church, but also content that they're happy to share on their own channels, that's approachable for their non-Christian friends to see, that they're fine with them seeing, that can be something that invites to church, that starts conversations. So do check out at The Way UK, spread the word. And I'm going to hand back now to Amaris.
Thank you, Rachel. That's all so exciting. I'm sure you'll all agree. So then let's just recap and think more generally about our main social media channels, as well as those exciting ideas we've got with The Way. So all that we're trying to do this Christmas is really, really simple. It's to let the public know they are invited this Advent and Christmas, either online or on site, to join us, to come in and hear more about what we believe at Christmas and the good news that we have to share. We will be taking our content across our channels, and content is just a way of saying our Facebook posts, our Instagram posts, those different things that we share across our different social media platforms. We're going to take all of that back to basics. We're going to assume no prior understanding, particularly on channels like Facebook and Instagram, where we tend to meet people who are a little bit more on the fringes of church, I might be able to say, but those people people who aren't regular churchgoers, taking it back to basics and really explaining what it is we believe. Our Did You Know explainer kind of content, the taking people through what certain days mean in our Christian calendar, letting them know what different symbols mean, why we do things, why we say things, why we share things. It performs really, really well, which shows us that people are interested in knowing more about what we do as a church. So we're going to do a lot more of that, and those are posts that you might find useful to share on your own church social media channels. So do look out for those. And we're going to drive the public to churchnearyou.com, as we have said multiple times, to find their local church. So that's all that we're doing directly to those individuals. But I'm going to welcome my colleague Emma on now, who's going to talk more about what we can do to equip our congregations, what you can do to equip your congregations to invite their friends, their family into churches this year.
Thank you, Amaris. So yeah, my name's Emma Buchan. I work as the co-head of Churches and Network Support team. It's a privilege to be here with you today, and I'm so excited about this year's campaign, The Great Invitation, because I think it's a way that we can inspire, equip and enable members of our congregation to be part of this journey. So first of all, what I'd really encourage you to do is to start talking about it in your church services from now. What does that look like? What does that mean? Well, what we're hoping is that if every congregation member could prayerfully maybe consider who they might like to invite to a service this year, maybe take 5 people they'd like to invite to either Christmas carol service or a nativity service. There's so many different services that go along over Christmas that different people may feel really welcomed and familiar going to one of those. The thing is, Christmas is familiar, Christmas carol services are familiar to most people in this country because so many of them have gone through Church of England schools and gone to carol services throughout their childhood. And personally, I find it easier to invite friends and family members who don't normally go to church to a Christmas carol service. So the great thing is that we've got these Christmas cards that have got an invitation attached to them. So who could you invite? Who could your congregation members invite? We have a lovely little commissioning. It's a 5-minute that can go into the Eucharist or the service of the word, which will be available within about 2 or 3 weeks, which is a commissioning to the people in your congregations to invite them to invite and encourage them to think who they'd like to invite to these services. The suggestion is actually you do that on the Sunday before Advent Sunday, so the 20th of November, to give them time to think about it. Maybe get some of the Christmas cards and give 5 to each congregation member. Who could they invite? Could they invite them back for coffee afterwards? Could they invite them back for a glass of mulled wine afterwards? But who could they invite? And then how, as a church, are you going to ensure that your services are so welcoming, so familiar? So if people come for the first time, it's really easy for them to understand if they're to stand up or sit down. Simple things to you and I, but barriers to people who maybe haven't been to church or haven't been in a church for a long time. As I say, inviting people at Christmas, you're tapping into the familiar, you're tapping into the nostalgic, you're tapping into the traditional. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we saw our churches full of people we've maybe not seen before, or people who haven't been for a few years because of COVID? As Thomas said earlier, those traditions maybe haven't been set yet with some families who go to the nativity service, say on Christmas Eve. Maybe new traditions can be set this year. So please do look out for all the resources to equip and enable and inspire your congregations, the commissioning, the Christmas cards to give out. But the thing is, with these things, it comes from the leadership, encouraging them, inspiring them that they can do this, that this is not too big a leap, this is not too big an ask. And also, I'd really challenge you all to consider what's next. So if people do come to the churches this Christmas, maybe they haven't been before, what's the next step? What can you invite them to in January, maybe, so you keep that contact up with them? We're here, though, within the, as I say, the Church and Network Support team to support any churches as you need. So please do email into the digital team if there's anything that you think you need to inspire and enable your congregations which aren't already there. Now I'm going to hand over to Natalie, who's going to talk about the opportunity that is brought about by the World Cup. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Emma. It's really good to be with everyone this morning. My name's Natalie Andrews and I'm the National Sport and Wellbeing Project Lead. And I'm working with 8 pilot dioceses, basically looking at how we use sport and wellbeing as an evangelistic and discipleship tool. So the World Cup is here this year, and the World Cup starts on the 21st of November. But the final of the World Cup is the 18th of December 2022. It's being hosted in Qatar, but the final will be at 3 p.m. on the 18th of December. And obviously this is a week before Christmas. It's often a time when churches will hold carol services. So I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity to do something different, perhaps avoid 3 p.m. on the 18th of December. Maybe you could do it later on at 6 o'clock, but who knows, there might be some penalties, especially if England's in the final. Perhaps you could hold your carol service on the Saturday instead. However, I don't think that faith and football have to be at odds with one another. As we know, many of the Premier League football clubs were set up by Christians years ago. There was a real drive to try and connect with those who weren't coming to church through football. And I think there's a real opportunity for us to do that today. So I'm just going to share some ideas about how you might use the World Cup as an evangelistic and discipleship vehicle this Christmas and Advent. So some of the things that you could do is to simply go and watch the football game in your local pub or your local sports club, or perhaps in your home, inviting some of your neighbours to come along to that final. And maybe during that time, share some kind of testimony about how your faith and your love of sport connect. Or you could try and screen the final in your church building itself. And there are obviously guidelines about how to do that through the CCLI. Or you could also, when it's during term time, you could actually do something different in school. You could hold a Christmas sports day, and there are organisations who use sport and faith in school regularly. And one of those organisations is called KIC, and some of the details will be on the website for you to find. What about socialising? What about holding a social event? There are many sports quizzes that Christians in sport offer for us to use as resources. So you could have a sports quiz and then carols afterwards, perhaps in your church building at another time different to the final. Another idea is to actually go to the local park, go to the local recreation ground, and hold something different, hold an event which encompasses sport, perhaps a game of football or multi-sports. And again, weaving in that great invitation into the game. And there will be ideas on the church support hub under the sport and wellbeing channel, which is different to the resources hub that we've talked about earlier. So there's many ideas that you can encompass sport, faith and life, and lots of ideas to simply do that and to think about how that becomes a regular activity within your church. Also, there's sports chaplaincy. There are many sports chaplains in clubs in your area. So perhaps find out if you've got a sports club in your area, whether it's grassroots or a professional club. Why not connect with your local sports chaplain and invite them to come along to share something about their faith and maybe inspire others to see that this could be a part of their own ministry and way of serving the church as a missional disciple. So there's loads of ideas there, but if you want to speak anything, find out more about how sport, faith and life can be interconnected, especially through this Advent and Christmas, please do get in touch with myself and others mentioned earlier on. Thank you.
Amazing, Natalie, and so many ideas I'm sure are springing up in your mind and definitely in mine. So I'm going to welcome everyone that we've heard from today back on so that we can start going through some of your questions. We had loads to share there. I hope that all makes sense and that you're starting to think of new ideas that you can try. Like I said, this presentation is going to be available on that churchofengland.org/Christmas very soon, as will a link to this recording. If there are other people, a couple of you have said, oh, our vicar needs to hear this, or other people need to hear this, you will be able to watch this back, and you will have the slides as well with all of those great links that Natalie has gone through and others have mentioned. So be reassured, if you didn't scribble a link down, don't worry, we've got you. We're going to put this up on the Christmas page very, very shortly. So shall we start going through some of these questions, and we'll do as many as we can. Someone did mention about social media and you not using some of those platforms that Rachel mentioned. And there is lots of help on the Church of England website about different platforms that churches might want to use under the digital labs section of our site, which is our training for churches on how to use and do just about everything on different social media platforms. So do have a look there if you are thinking about trying a new platform, but also do think about who are you trying to reach. If you're not trying to reach that age group that Rachel's just been talking about, right now, then don't worry about trying out TikTok this year. Just focus on the platforms that you're using. But if younger people, if you do have a good youth group and you are trying to reach out to more younger people, then perhaps, yes, TikTok and Instagram might be something that you might want to try. But like I said, we've got blogs and videos and webinars on how to do all of that. So do have a look at the Digital Labs part of the website. Rachel just put a link up there if you want to have a look. Okay, now we have got a question about when some of this might be ready. Someone was looking for the app already. Someone was looking at when they might be able to get their hands on the booklets. The best thing to do is to be following us on social media, so we don't start promoting that app until a few days before those reflections are available to start reading, because it's a bit frustrating having an app on your phone when there's nothing to see yet. So that's the app question. Thomas, you mentioned that all of our clergy is going to receive a copy of the reflection booklet in the post. Have you got any other ideas on what we can say about timings there?
Well, in terms of print resources, I'd say we're targeting mid-October for that, which is later than we'd like them to be, but I'd say that there are various reasons for that this time. But so that's where I would hope that they'll be available there, so people would see them and they'd be available as well, see the samples, but also be available to, having seen the samples, hopefully order in bulk from that point, from late October, which should give plenty of time to get things to most places in ahead of Advent, and that start of Advent and all those places, the times which you'd hope to be giving out the resources. So that's key. In terms of if you're really keen and really want the app now, it's all that because it's a seasonal campaign app. It is available. You could download the app in its Lent form. It's called Live Lent Embracing Justice. If you search that in your app store, you can download it, and it will magically at some point before Advent turn into Follow the Star. But otherwise, just follow the page, as Anna says.
Yeah, follow us on social media and keep checking that /Christmas page for all the updates. Now, Howard has said something really interesting about all that I'm sure all of you watched yesterday across the different services that were taking place and all the visitors that have gone to London to pay respects in some form over the last 10 days or so, and what this might mean for us, what questions people might be having right now that we have the answers to. Emma, putting you on the spot slightly, but have you got anything on this?
Yeah, I mean, I heard a lovely quote yesterday. So a friend of a friend who isn't a Christian, reflected back to her friend saying, goodness, you were right. The whole of the Queen's character was based on her faith. And I think that there is a unique opportunity in time right now for us to be thinking as a church how we amplify through socials the stories of the Queen's ministry and reconciliation, thinking of Northern Ireland, her, and so many stories I could carry on, but how loved she was by the nation, and what a shining example of what it means to be a disciple, a follower of Jesus Christ. And I don't have the answers. However, it was a text I sent last night to someone quite late, saying, how do we as a church respond to this? Hope together have done a beautiful book on the Queen's life. If somebody particularly wants something right now which is ready to go, which talks about her faith and her character, which you can, I think, buy quite cheaply and give away to friends and family. But in relation to Christmas and the outpouring of grief that we've seen for people, Amber, as you said earlier, you know, you've heard lots of people say, actually, it reminded me of my grandma's death, and it reminded me of my mum's death. So Archbishop Justin on socials just a couple of days ago said, be curious and be present. So ask the questions of those people you know and you see, whether it's in the pub, your neighbour or your friend or someone you know has lost someone. And then when they talk to you, be fully present and listen and prayerfully kind of seek God in how you respond to that. So I think there's the personal, which is what I've just said. And then I think there's the church. And then I think there's the kind of, maybe there's something even we can do. And maybe, Amaris, this is a great conversation for you and I to have later on.
Yes, definitely. We'll be looking at that nationally. We've got a couple of things that were maybe quite easy for you to share, such as those posts by the Archbishop. Even if you just share those on your social media channels or your churches, some of the Church of England posts that have been shared. We've also got the Light a Candle feature on the Church of England website that people find really, both Christians and non-Christians, find a nice thing to do that's so simple. You just click through a few pages of our website, but that might be another nice thing to be sharing. And also thinking, as we get towards Advent and Christmas, what are those resources do we have that we can just make sure that we acknowledge what's happened this year, as we hopefully welcome people in to be a more celebratory Christmas, we hope, this year. We've got a few questions around different specific resources and tags on the church near you. Andrew, great idea. We'll scribble that down and make sure we get those added, and some other resources that people have specifically asked for. So we will do that. Sally is asking, Natalie, do you think a nativity would work before the game? So we go from nativity to watching the game. What do you think?
I think that's an excellent idea, definitely. And especially if you could somehow really creatively have football as part of the nativity, like just in a really fun kind of way. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. And I think there's going to be some great photos. So that reminds me, this year, we always ask for this, but this year more than ever, we would love you to share everything that you're doing on social media and to tag us and to use the hashtag follow the star so that we can see as much of that and amplify that with other churches, to encourage other churches, but also to show individuals that might be following us what it looks like to go to church this Christmas, and your photos are the best way for us to do that. We've got another couple of questions around people that don't have a vicar at the moment. We hear you and are asking for ways to get these different resources. The good thing is, like Rachel said, on a church near you, it's easier than ever to sign up if you don't have a vicar, and she's put the links in to find out more about that. And then in terms of resources, that will all be available on that /Christmas page. So do just keep looking there and you'll be able to get those reflections that we said about, and on the app as well. As soon as the new app for this Advent and Christmas goes live, you'll be able to get a taster of a reflection even before the daily reflections do begin. So don't worry if you don't have a vicar right now to receive that booklet in the post from Church House Publishing. You will be able to get those. Looking at a couple of other questions, people saying thank you for coming along. We like to have that. Welcome to Beryl in Australia as well. Big hello to you. I'm not sure what the time is there. Is it a good time? I don't know, but lovely to have you with us. Lydia asking about resources being sent to the diocese. Yes, Lydia, we talk to our diocesan comms colleagues, communications colleagues frequently, and they know about this. So do touch base with them, because we're sharing all of this information with them, and that goes to all of you as well. If you do have any questions, perhaps specifically to your diocese, do chat with your diocesan communications manager, because we're in touch with them, so they might have ideas about how locally you'll be able to get involved, and some ideas locally that you might want to do. We have had a question from Julia saying that her vicar is of the mind that online resources are almost stopping people coming in person, and what should we do about that? We've probably, all of us here on the call, have got thoughts on that. Something I would say is that we have nationally heard some really encouraging stories about people that have felt more confident to explore faith online, because they just felt it an easier place to do so. People that have come along to online worship who churches have never seen before, but perhaps live at the end of the road, and how relationships have been formed online that have resulted in those people coming along on a Sunday or two other events throughout the week. So we've heard really encouraging stories, Julia. Emma, I think you've got some encouragement as well for Julia.
Yeah, Julia, I understand it's unfamiliar to people hosting this hybrid way, but we did some qualitative and quantitative research into faith journeys through the pandemic, and what it threw up was really fascinating. That actually that different people go to different churches for different reasons. So some is experiential, which means like the worship, maybe the sung worship or the Eucharist. Some is community, the relationships formed, and some is basically the educational side of things, like getting a lot from the sermon. And so people actually in the last category really thrived in the pandemic, because they could take the sermon, they could pull it apart, and actually it didn't mean they had to integrate so much, which for them as a personal faith was far better. And also people maybe on the spectrum, they found that actually that they were people who really thrived in the third category. I really understand that it's unfamiliar to your vicar. I will put my email in the chat, and I'm happy to forward you the research, which evidences the importance of hybrid church in being inclusive to everyone in society, not just people like me who actually does prefer to be in church in person. So what I'm really saying is there's factual evidence, hard evidence behind this, which supports the importance of hybrid church going forward.
Amazing. And Judith just said something that does relate, that they found that putting up pictures of what the inside of the church looks like has made people feel less shy about coming in. And that is something that we always talk about. Your social media channels are a window into what is happening on in your building. So make sure you're showing people what it looks like through that door, particularly if you've got a Victorian building like Judith, and it's perhaps not as easy to see without stepping through what's going on inside. So yeah, great great thing, Judith, to remind us all of. And then Thomas, someone else is asking just about when these reflections are happening. Remind us.
Yeah, good point. It's always good to neglect the totally obvious, isn't it? Yeah, so the reflections there are 12 reflections, and they are for the 12 days of Christmas. So there is one that starts on, obviously interesting. Another thing to sort of think about, the thing that makes this year different is Christmas Day being a Sunday. So it does, which in a sense is probably helpful for so two birds with one stone in some ways, but it does make things different. But so the first there are Christmas Eve, Christmas Day is our first reflection, and then they run all the way to Epiphany. They're Monday to Saturday reflections, so that because on Sunday, generally speaking, our experience, particularly when we're looking at people using the app or following other material online, Sunday is a day when we're generally, you know, busy doing other things like being in church, which is great. So they Monday to Saturday, 12 days of Christmas. We do, and the reason why we do that is because, as I say, we don't want to encourage people to give out, or to encourage you know, people to download the app for something that when they turn up at the Christmas crib at the crib service or at midnight mass, and they've already missed the first half. So actually, it's the idea that actually the digital resources and all the print resources are about helping people to take that next step, and to really encourage people to come on and to think that they start the new year with that Christian message in their life as well, rather than it just being ticked off for another year. So 24th onwards.
Great, thank you. And the place to buy all of that is Church House Publishing, which I'm going to say it again, but that churchofengland.org/Christmas has the link to. So do go there to find all of those printed resources to buy, and then the Church Near You resource hub for the customizable resources that you can download and use on digital platforms, or print them yourself if you would like to do it that way round. There's so many ideas you put in the Q&A that we've noted down. Don't worry if you've got ideas for new things that we haven't thought about. We've made a note. We'll work through those and do what we can. But I think we've overrun. So I think that is the time to end it there. Like I said, you can watch this back. You can get the slides very, very shortly on that /Christmas page. So do look there and look at everything else. We've got the logos ready for you to download. We've got other ideas ready for you to grab and start planning now if you are ready to do so. But we're so glad that you could all join us today. It's been great to spend this time with you and hear a bit more about what you're planning locally. Like I said, please do keep us in touch. Probably the easiest way to do that is to share on social media what you're up to this year, and we'd love to share, amplify as much of that content as possible. So do tag the Church of England or use the hashtag #FollowTheStar, or do both, and then we'll definitely see it. But yes, thank you so much. Well done for all you've done already this year. We are looking forward to seeing what you work on throughout this Advent and Christmas. We wish you very well. We'll be praying for you all. And yeah, well done. You are doing an amazing job already, and we're excited to see what's to come. I hope you found this session useful. Thanks to all of my colleagues here on the call, and I hope to see you all on another webinar very shortly. Have a lovely day. See you all later.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.